Good morning. We're live. We're going to talk about freight, logistics. We have our coffee, and we're going to do the intro that everybody loves while I get things situated. Stay tuned. Minute tops, a couple of minutes. All right. You got that. All right. Let's go. Yes. Good morning. Notifications went out late because YouTube is dumb, right? So, anyways, we're live talking about freight. And let me get everything situated here. I hope all is well with everybody that's watching this replay because nobody's in here now. That's fine. There they are. There we go. There we go. It is Wednesday, February 4th, and 2026. We're going to talk about freight. We're going to talk about weather a little bit. Weather has calmed down, unless you're in North Carolina. And the snow is finally starting to melt around here. Let's get rid of this here. And all the markets are disrupted. They are interesting. I'm seeing some really great rates because not only do I have the perspective of me looking for loads for the drivers that I dispatch, but also what the other drivers that dispatch themselves are booking for themselves. I've been seeing $4 and $5 miles, $4 or $5 a mile on stuff that you could do in a day that's paying pretty good, like $1,000, $1,100 a day. Now, I was talking to a driver yesterday about buying a trailer. I said, now's the time to buy a trailer because if rates continue to stay up for a bit, then that means the cost of equipment will go higher. So just kind of keep that in mind. Because it happens every cycle. Hold on a second. Thank God for the mute button, so you don't have to hear that. It happens every cycle. Rates get really good for a minute. People like, oh, this is going to stick around, and so then you got trucks that have been parked for a minute that enter back in the market, but also you got people that are like, hey, I'm going to buy all this equipment from companies that went out of the business, went under. And that's part of the cycle. That's part of the reality of what you're in. If you're in the trucking game, whether you're spot, company, contract, doesn't matter. That's the name of the game. That's how companies have survived over and over and over. So it's the same concept as the stock market. Buy low, sell high. So anyways, I wanted to go over the freight, and we'll go over some volumes. Volumes are still looking pretty good, and then we're going to go over the freight report that is supplied to me by CDN Freight Broker. Check out his channel. I don't know if he's done anything in a while, but he does have some valuable stuff on his YouTube. So hopefully he'll come in here and say hi. So, anyways, let's go with the weather first. Share screen. Let's see where we at here. National Weather Service. Pretty quiet for a change. You know, it's a little windy up here, up in Minnesota, South Dakota, a little bit of Iowa, and then you've got some winter weather going on in North Carolina, Central Raleigh area. That's so. But other than and then a little spot in New York, which is it's where my mom lives, is this area. It snows like 24/7 there. I think they're getting some lake effect snow up there. But those are the only warnings you got to really worry about. And then some freeze stuff, some cold stuff down here in northern Florida, which is frost advisory. So not a big deal. They saw some really cold temperatures the other day, and they're over that hump. We're all over the hump. You know, our snow's melting here. Highways are just about clear everywhere. So we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good. So business back to normal, because I've had I'm sure there's a lot of trucks that have decided to avoid all the weather and ran nothing but the Southeast or the I-10 corridor. And it's been limiting a little bit money wise, and I'm planning on, in my head now, I haven't written this down, but I'm planning soon to do a strategy and put that on the members page of running Georgia, Florida, because it could be done, right? So here's some logistics, common sense. Okay, I'm going to take the screen out for a minute. Here's some logistics, common sense. I'm going to use a parable here. If you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu, you're hungry, but you're not starving, right? You're hungry, but you've been fed pretty good, and you sit down, you look at the menu, and nothing looks good. Nothing on the menu looks good at all. What do? You leave, right? So if you're sitting there in Miami, Florida, and all the loads on the load board that you're looking at, which I should say load boards, because you should be using multiple load boards if you're doing that thing. If none of those loads look good, then leave. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to hem and haw. You're going, I don't know, man. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Next thing you know, you've been staring at a load board for 6 hours when you could have been 300 miles up the road to a better market. So again, go back to the restaurant. If you're sitting down and you're looking at the menu and nothing looks good, then you leave the restaurant. It's that simple. Now, if you're in the biggest buffet restaurant there is, right, and there's plenty of food, plenty of choices, plenty of everything, and nothing looks good, you may be a picky eater, and maybe you shouldn't go out to eat. So if you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you can't find a load, you either need something specific. So if you go to an Italian restaurant and you're looking for cheeseburgers, you're probably in the wrong spot. But if you open up, well, I like this, I like this, I like this, then you're gonna eat. So if you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you need something going directly to one place only, that's a very limited option. But if you're in Jacksonville, Florida, looking for the same exact single option, you're going to have a better luck out of Columbus than you will Jacksonville, at least for the rate that you want. So this is how freight. It's basic. It's one of those things in life. I've learned this has become kind of a mantra to me. It's simple, but not easy. Right? So if you're down in Miami, Florida, looking at a load board, and you wait 6 hours because nothing looks good on the menu, then you get up, you move out of that restaurant, and you go. Now, if you're starving and you go into a restaurant but nothing looks good on the menu, then you're not hungry enough, right? So if you go, so when you went down to Miami, you should have been fed very well to where you have the ability to go, you know what? Nothing looks good. I'm leaving this restaurant because I don't have to eat right now because I'm not hungry. It's the same concept. So you sit there and wait 6 to 8 hours when you could have been 300 or 400 miles into a better market, and then rinse, repeat. Right? You eat well for 2 days, and then you kind of fast for a day. Eat well for 2 days, you fast for a day. And you'll be nourished, you'll be fine. It's the same thing in the spot market. I watch it. I watch this being done every single day. If you're in the middle of, say, nowhere, Kansas, and let's say you're in Hayes, Kansas with the flatbed and you can't find anything. No, you're at the restaurant and there's nothing on the menu. Leave. Go. Find the best market that's nearest to you and go there. Now, people will argue, well, if you take that cheap load on the back haul, you'll protect the profit from protect the profit on the first load, which is true if you don't waste time on it. If it costs you an extra day, then no. Just go. And then look at your all rate, everything you made over all the days, or if you're doing the mileage, over all the mileage. And you're going to find that a large percentage of the problems that a person has running spot market freight is the person themselves. If you're making a ton of money, but you're broke, do you blame the market or do you blame the person? Now, we all have circumstances. Truck goes in the shop, something's not covered in warranty, you're paying $30,000 for a new transmission or something like that. That's understandable. You prepare for times like that. And hopefully you have a plan to deal with that. I was talking to someone that's thinking about putting people in lease trucks. And I said, well, is the person you're putting in the lease truck, do they have a good credit? Do they have money saved up? No. Okay, then why would you put them in a truck? The big carriers get away with that. Schneider, Prime, Swift, they all can get away with that because they have capital to spare. I was offered, someone wanted to purchase my truck, and I said no, because I knew that person was broke and I didn't have the capital to pay for the new turbo or to pay for the new transmission or to pay for the injectors for that truck. And that truck was not under warranty. Now the warranty makes that model easier, but and you need to make that's why it's important to have truck payments that are manageable regardless of what the market conditions are. So, because there are many things that are beyond our control, beyond what our brain tends to hold us back on. There are problems beyond that. You could be the best runner, the best budgeter, but you could have a car cut you off and change your life completely. So, and there's no way you can plan for everything. But another thing I'll bring up is I know a driver that was sitting in their lane. They're driving, doing about 60 miles an hour. And there was a scuffle behind this driver. They ended up tapping the trailer and then proceeded to cause chaos behind, kind of like NASCAR, when you watch Daytona, one car wipes out the rest of them. It was a situation like that. And that person was trying to blame the company, the trucking company, trying to blame the other car. And, you got situations like that you can't help that could cause hardships. So to sit there and stare at a load board when you're down in Miami, Florida, and say you can't find the load, if you can't get over that hump, that small problem, then when a bigger problem that you have no control over happens, it's going to take you out. Don't believe me? Well, rates are higher right now. Why? Because capacity is leaving the market. Two things: the illegal immigrant situation, non-domicile CDL situation, and then also because trucking companies are going under. So just keep that in mind the next time you're having a little hissy fit about how you can't find a load. Is it you or is it the market? If it's the market, leave it. So CDN is in here. We're going to go over his little market conditions here. We'll do this. Let's say hi to the people. Desert Pam, good morning. Fran, what's up? Hey, Snorelord in chat. CDN says, good morning, Steve. I had a deep conversation with a Canadian flatbed carrier owner. He is almost ready to close the doors. Why? Can't get Canadian-born drivers. Similar issue in the USA. I don't know. What is the roadblock getting Class 1 drivers in Canada in 2026? 1, if you're under 23, most carriers won't take you on. 2, cost for Class 1, $10,000. Wow. Some carriers pay half if you stay 3 years. Now, the standard here has been a year, and then it turned into 18 months if the company you go to gets your CDL for you. I went a different route. I took a credit card, went to a local college, and got my CDL that way, and I had that paid off within the first 6 months. I don't remember what it was. I think it was about $2 or $3 grand. It wasn't very high, and I know that pricing's insane now. But $10,000, that's a little bit extreme, right? 3, pay for new drivers after paying $10,000 for Class 1 is not great. You have to run many miles, be away from home. What is the solution to make Class 1 career in 2026? Well, the classic go-to default statement is that trucking is a lifestyle. And so the CDL schools do not prepare you for the lifestyle. Their job is to get the CDL. And then the companies that hire fresh new CDL students, they know that they can use and abuse the drivers because they don't know any better. I had a recruiter tell me flat out that they would rather have a new person get their CDL for them versus hiring someone that's been around for 10 years, because they can mold and shape them to exactly what they want. And because of a lot of companies and their lack of moral ethics, they will use and abuse, and because they know that the driver doesn't know any better. Small example. So there was a driver who was new, didn't know any better, and he was supposed to pick up a drop trailer that had busted rivets on the front because it was rolled paper. It was paper rolls, and the previous driver had slammed on the brakes, and it busted some rivets in the front of the trailer. He was told to roll with it. And as a trainer, he was told, me and a friend of mine told him that wasn't a good idea. And so he stood his ground, but he wouldn't have stood his ground because the company was trying to be like, no, it's fine. You're good. Just do what we tell you. Right. So most carriers aren't willing to bend over backwards to help a CDL person, a fresh new CDL mill person succeed. They want to pay. See, here's the thing. They want to pay for the CDL so they have you for 3 years, as you've demonstrated, or 18 months or 1 year. And if not, you're going to think about this. If I said, hey, you come work for me, I'll pay $10,000 for your, whatever, right? But you got to do what I tell you. And if you don't, I'm going to slap you with the bill. Most people would say get bent, but people do it over and over and over. So just like my previous example of drivers being their own worst enemies, carriers can be their own worst enemy as well. They're not interested in your emotional problems. They're not interested in your problems at all. We'll get your CDL. We'll put a free TV and a free satellite and free fridge in your truck. Yeah. Now you're going to make the truck payment, but man, we're going to make it as comfortable as possible because we know that you're going to be out, 320 days out of the year just to pay for that truck running our freight. Now, what happens is if you got a good carrier that doesn't sign up for all of that, well, you're not picking from the best pool of people, right? And so the biggest hurdles are the carriers themselves, and they're expecting too much from someone that doesn't know any better. That's your challenge. What is the solution to make a Class 1 career in 2026? Get a CDL on your terms and work for a good company. And then, because here's the thing. As a trainer, see, when my company first made me a trainer, they first approached me and I was like, no, I've only been driving 2 years. There's no way. I'm not going to be one of those guys that, well, we just need you to do refreshers for people that have been off the road for a minute. We won't give you any fresh CDL people. I said, why me? And the safety person, she said, well, because you still know what it's like to go to CDL school. All of our other trainers are these old jaded drivers that never went to a CDL school. So you can relate to these people better. I'm like, okay. That's a good point. And it made me a decent trainer because not only did I help them with the driving aspect of the job, but I helped them with the mental aspect of the job. Think about this. You're a man in your 30s, you got a wife and two kids at home, the kids are little, and you decide that, I'm tired of factory work and I don't know how to be a plumber, I don't know how to be a welder, and so I'm going to go to trucking school and learn to drive a truck, okay? Well, you get on the road and roles switch at home. Your wife becomes the leader of the house. And then that creates a distance and a rough patch for you and your wife. And then your kids, they miss you. Yeah, it's a little bit easier than when I was a kid because you got cell phones, you got, you can do the live camera phone, FaceTime or whatever. But still, you come home as a man and you feel like a stranger in your own home. Decisions have been made without your help. And so that takes a toll mentally. And a lot of people, a lot of guys that come into the trucking world can't handle that. And then there's the physical aspect. I never tossed a trainer or a trainee to do 600 miles in one day. We had to build up to that. And then the food. Every single trainee that I had ended up getting sick at one point or another in the first 4 weeks of training because their body's not used to all this fast food. And so I would try to keep an extra cooler so they could have at least some reasonably healthy choices that they could keep in the truck. So there's not a lot of companies that have trainers that are willing to put that kind of detail into the situation. You're a piece of meat, put you behind the wheel, and after 4 weeks of training, go. We're going to tell you how high to jump. And you better do it because you owe us 10 grand if you don't. So that's your biggest challenge. That's why nobody wants to be a truck driver. Because almost all the entry level companies are like that. You're just a truck number. You're just a driver number. And, and then the really good companies, that's sarcasm there, by the way, will, hey, you're fresh out of CDL school. Do you want to be a business owner? We'll put you in a lease truck. And so you have companies that will convince somebody to make the truck payment, to pay for the fuel, to pay for the permits, to pay for everything that has to do with that truck just to run their very dedicated closed board freight. And they've tricked you into making a truck payment so they don't have to make that payment. So when things go wrong, it's on you, not on them. So the challenge is for carriers to find good drivers, it's on them. Simple. Simple as that. There are companies out there that will give you an opportunity. You've been driving a few years, you want to become an owner operator, let's help you. That's what we do here. But drivers get taken advantage over and over and over from carriers that get them out of CDL school, and that's why the illegal immigrant problem is in the trucking industry. Why? Because they wanted those non-domicile CDLs because they can't even fight. If your non-domicile CDL says no name given, you can't fight anything. And they could give you a lower wage because you're making more money than you ever have before in your other country. It's the trucking companies that brought. See, here's the thing. You had a government administration that brought in a lot of illegal immigrants. Okay. but it was the trucking companies that hired them. It was the government that gave them their authorities and their CDL. And so that's so the challenges that carriers face, they've created this. This is the environment that we work in and live in. And going back to what I was saying before, let's say you're the best budgeter and you're the best driver and you've got all your ducks lined up in a row and you are a picture perfect contractor slash business and or authority owner. And all you do are you're just innocently sitting at the truck stop, get ready to, binge on Netflix and Popeye's chicken. And then somebody who's under stress, who hasn't had great training and no skills, wipes your truck out and takes your hood out. Now you're down for 2 months while insurance companies argue about who's paying for the hood. How do you survive that? How many small companies were taken out because of those situations? I can tell you that there's been several times in my career that I literally was able to save that scenario just by sitting in the front of the truck. Had I not been in the front of the truck, I would have lost my hood 3 times in my Green Kentworth. So the challenges that carriers face, mainly they've caused it. You write that down. 720 to 724. Right? So you want quality drivers, you got to do quality things. Everybody wants to be a fleet owner until it's time to do fleet owner things. Right? Melt was replaced in April 25, Class 1 learning pathway. The carrier also said he tries to train his dispatch and drivers. He says they don't listen. That is true. Look, when you hire 10 drivers, you're dealing with 10 different personalities, 10 different lives, 10 different ways that they've been brought up. And you have all this chaos going across our country right now because people aren't listening. They're only believing what they're fed, making simple assumptions and judgments based off of non-facts. Okay. So yes, people don't listen. You know how many CDN, you know how many people call me and say, "Hey man, I've been watching you and Jeff like for years and years and years. And man, I think you guys have a lot of great advice and info." And then I'm like, "All right, cool." I said, "What do you need?" "Well, I need some help." "Okay, what's your cost per day?" I don't know. "What's your truck payment?" "Well, I don't know." Right? I'm struggling here because I think my cost is $200 a day, and I'm Miami, Florida, and I'm having trouble getting out. But man, you and Jeff are great, man. You guys, I mean, I listen to everything you do. I'm like, no, you don't. You hear it, but you don't listen. And look, I'm not judging because that's human nature, right? And so if you are a carrier fleet owner, you're putting people in trucks, you got to know the personality of the people that you're of the person that you're putting in that truck. And you're going to deal with circumstances. You're going to deal with situations that aren't ideal. So finding a high quality person to put in a truck is one of the biggest challenges. And that's hard to do because of what the industry has created and bred. It's that simple. Not easy, but it's simple. Mr. Steve, you're a genius. You saw divorces where couples where a spouse works away regardless of profession. That shift, the partner parent who's at home becomes master of the home if the other partner can flip that switch in their mind. It would change how they view things when they come home. You would give the at-home partner more respect. I think away partner expects respect equals issues. It's a challenge and adjustment for everyone. This is a cutthroat business, but you got to start somewhere. That is true. And I know people that started with Swift or started with Prime or started with a lot of these companies that put you through the ringer in the beginning, but then they come out the other side. Why? Because you have the right mindset. And I hear this a lot. Check this out. So somebody goes, "Hey man, I started with $100 in my pocket and I became a lease operator and boom, now I own my own authority and have 3 trucks, da 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 da." Okay, cool, right? Then you have another person that goes, "Hey, what are you trying to do?" "Well, I want to be a business owner." "Well, what do you got?" "I've got $100 in my pocket." "But so and so said he did it." Okay, that's the exception, not the rule. If you have 100 people and you give them that same scenario, how many people are going to be able to do something with that? It's all mindset. You give someone $100 and they're either going to blow it or they're going to utilize it. What's the difference? You can give 10 people $100. What are they all going to do with it? Some people will be generous and give to others. Well, now I can give so and so 20, I can give so and so 20, and I can give so and so 20, and I'll keep 5 for myself. You have a generous spirit that will do that. Or you got people like, "I'm going to go out and buy a couple of fifths of, expensive whiskey." And you got other people like, "Man, I'm going to save this because I don't know when I'm going to need it in the future." It's all mindset, right? So you can start at some of these, bottom feeder companies, as we call them in the industry, and do well. Just don't fall for their traps. There's a company out there, they have the chicken lights on their trucks. You probably know who I'm talking about. They're a reefer company out of Oklahoma. And they go, "Oh, you get free TV, you get a free satellite, you get free this, you get free that." Because you're going to live in that truck. When I was a trainee, and the first time I saw a semi truck at the truck stop with the satellite dish on the window, my first thought was, "Wow, that's genius." But then something sank in, and my trainer goes, "Yeah, that means he's on the road too much. That he needs that luxury." And you have companies that will give that to you for free, thinking that they're scratching your back when actually it's because they're going to expect you to stay out. Now, if you want to stay out and work hard, great. If you're a single person that has no ties and you're just wanting to stack up the cash, plenty of companies will allow you to do that. So if you're 26, no family ties, not even a social life, then you come out and you just make sure that the company's not taking advantage of you. But if you are a family man and you need some home time for, especially during the adjustment period, then that's a whole different. So that's a whole different scenario. And most people just, let's blanket statement everything, and this is just what it is, with no adjustment. Mindset, right? No, I doubt that. I doubt I prevented anything because it takes work and it takes the ability to recognize what's going on. And I struggled with that, but on the other side, we came out stronger. But we had to go through hell to get there. Welcome back. Says the SAP program should be done away with. We need 0 tolerance for drug and alcohol violations, automatic lifetime ban. We need to have stricter CDL requirements like no convicted felons, no drunk driving arrests or convictions. Man, you're heavy-handed there. Zero tolerance. The SAT program is the reason people work for black op companies because nobody will hire them because they're a liability to everyone. Take away the SAT program and the drivers whom failed, and black ops companies will be hurting. Ghost Driver says, I agree. I don't think there should be a SAT program ever. You guys are speaking up on that. But that's just another look. When I was company driver, I was doing a run where we were leaving here, bobtail, going down to Paragould, Arkansas to pick up brand new utility trailers that were coming out and bringing them back up here. It was gravy for 2 weeks. It was awesome. And one of the drivers that was on these runs, he had flipped a truck a couple of months beforehand. And I asked him, I said, you're the guy that flipped the truck. He goes, yeah. Like, how are you still here? Because in the past, they've fired people for that. Well, I was shocked too. I said, you realize that they got you though, because no one else will hire you. And if they say jump, you got to ask how high. And he agreed with that. But he was ready to face that. He was ready to, face his mistakes or whatever. That's no different, right? So, anyways. Buck Brown, greetings. Hope all is well. Hope you're doing well, Buck. I heard rumors that you were parked next to Sterling there not too long ago. So, anyways, let's share the screen here. Oops. Share screen. Now let's get into the freight analytics. Done preaching here. This is good news. The fact that we're in neutral for the overall market, that's pretty good. Van is in neutral, finally. So it's been easier to get the rates than I want. And it's, and what's interesting is seeing the brokers that have not adjusted to this yet. You know what? I'm gonna bring up a picture here. Hold on. I gotta email it to myself first. Well, I'm just gonna read it. Because I don't want to read it. This was on one of the rate per mile pages. Broker here, I am underwater on all my loads, not some, all. My biggest customer, a billion-dollar global food company based in the U.S., is still putting pressure on all carriers to hold on for dear life. It'll get better this spring, quote unquote. A few more weeks and everything will be back to normal, quote unquote. I'm not giving back loads yet, but it has been tough to find coverage for everything. I've given my carrier team blank checks to book any truck they can find, and we still miss loads. Service is suffering. My customer is feeling this. Sent out an email this morning. If capacity continues to be constrained, we will need to explore expanding all our rail fleet to ensure we can meet demand while maintaining customer satisfaction. That was from their customer. I'm not sure what they're trying to do by telling us that. Threaten to start moving everything by rail. Okay, go. Okay, bro, go for it. I think they're bluffing. They do use rail for time, but for time sensitive shipments, rail is not an option. If it were, they would already done this. For the first time in my career, I netted 3,000 for the month of January. I'm still running at a loss and working for free. Hoping the demand will continue to rise, that we can get back to the good old days of winning. But boy, oh boy, does this transitionary period hurt. Godspeed to all my fellow brokers out there. Keep fighting the good fight. We will be printing again soon. That's from a broker. You could hear it in their voice when you talk to them, if you can find a broker to talk to you. You see, relationships matter. And, there's one broker I use quite a bit. I have not used them in the last couple of, 3 weeks, but sparingly here and there because they had the exact loan I needed. But beyond that, because I've been getting good rates from other brokers. And so I can watch it in our TMS system which brokers are always in the top 5. And that has shifted because you can tell, and a lot of it's the bigger brokers, you can tell that they're not wanting to quite get rid of that profit margin yet. And then they're having trouble moving the loads. And I saw literally the single highest 2-day load rate booked yesterday from one of our drivers. It was the single highest van rate I've seen that wasn't going to the West or East Coast. I was like, wow. I'm looking all over the Raycon, make sure it wasn't hazmat or drop trailer, but no, it was a legit rate. Right? So things are finally getting to the driver's, favor. Now, just like the last upturn, I warned everybody that, well, that makes everything else go up. Your parts, your repair bill, your tolls, your taxes, everything else goes up. If we can just find a good middle ground where we're making good money that can sustain, but it seems like the pendulum's unsustainable, good, unsustainable, good, unsustainable, right? And so you're going to start seeing a lot of brokers go out of business because of this, because you take a broker like C.H. Robinson or TQL, they can absorb a profit loss for a while versus that mom and pop broker that's got the little strip mall suite, in the middle of town moving, 18 water loads a day. Right. And so a company like that has to value relationships and hope that they're using carriers that don't care about market conditions. Yeah, Big Mac, it is that's what he's saying. He's calling their bluff, right? Why do we need to give people second and third, fourth chances when the drug testing policy is done for safety? Well, there is redemption. Welcome back. Question: which broker or shipper increased rates first? Which broker or ship? We'll see, right? We'll see. How safe is it to be on the road with someone who's in their second or third SAP program? I don't know. Second and third, I don't know. That's a hard number to know, right? Somewhere out there is an analytic that says this percentage of accidents is caused by this percentage of SAP or ex-SAP people. So those are the numbers I would look at, right? Anyways, flatbed is almost in the tight category. Reefer is just about in the tight category. And I now I get a lot of emails from different brokers, and I've been seeing some really good reefer rates coming out of like places like Idaho, Washington, the harvesting, and then you've got a lot of snack foods, the Super Bowl, and then the basketball. All that creates a lot of reefer freight in the wintertime. You got your beverages, you got your candies, you got your snacks, you got your processed food, all being shipped on the refrigerator. But this is literally the best market I've seen in quite a while. Now, if you've been sitting for 2 years with your truck parked, well, you got to be careful. February will tell the story whether this is just a dead cat bounce or if this is legit here to stay for a minute. And I think that capacity leaving because of truck companies going out of business and because of the non-domicile CDL immigrant situation, I think that's creating this. It's kind of a perfect storm, if you will. What we do with the storm depends solely on the person, because you got to remember, people went out of business when the rates were really good. Why? Because of lack of management. So hopefully in this downturn, you've learned your lessons, and now you get back to making money. Now you can get back to not being in the red, right? So, man, we've been at this for almost an hour. I'm barely into this. Van is at 232 a mile average, flatbeds at 259, and reefers at 281 in January. We're in the first week of February. So February is usually a bump down a little bit, but we'll see what this looks like here in the next couple of weeks. I watched a driver yesterday get $5 a mile from New Mexico to Texas. I called him up. I said, dude, is this a drop trailer or something? He's like, no. I said, that's good rate. You did good. Now, if you look at this chart, total spot loads, look how high this is compared to last year. February last year was desolate. This is what this orange line is. And then the 5-year average is this dotted line. And we're slightly above the 5-year average, which is good news. Great discussion. Busy day ahead. Got to go. Thank you, CDN. Chrome Shop 2026. That's funny. What's up, Cheap Freight Hauler? I was working with one broker for the last 6 months, but I picked up a reefer trailer. The rates right now are too much not to. My question is, how do you keep a very high-paying broker happy and me, LOL? Well, if a broker's paying really high, then that's a good relationship to have. And I have a few relationships like that. But then I got drivers that'll scoff at the 350 mile I can get them on this stuff. That's not good enough. Oh, okay. All right. This chart says the takeaway here is capacity is extremely tighter to start off the year in 2026 than the 3 preceding years, 23, 24, and 25. Here we go. English proficiency, out of service violations, inspecting state versus carrier home state. I don't have time to really dive into that. And then, of course, the Florida cold snap is going to affect crops. So just be careful with that. But right now, let's see. Outbound in the whole market is 13.42%. Van is at 13.23%. Flatbed is at 18%. And reefer is at 15% outbound reject index. Which means the bottom line is we have some pricing power as a carrier. And so going back to our original discussion about taking advantage of new people, they're looking for the new people that don't know what the average lane is supposed to pay, that don't know their numbers. They're looking for those people that don't know any better. They'll look for the people that are pushover because they might be like, okay, we've got these all day and every day for 800, 200 miles, $800. Oh, yeah, hook me up for the next week. And then next week comes like, hey, man, my customer's kind of pushing. We're trying to be at 750. Hey, 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 come here. Do. Come on. Hey. Oh, he's barking at probably a cat, right? Chief Freight Hauler knows his numbers. Gross revenue in 26 of January, 27,000. January 2025, 16K. Wow. Good on you, my friend. I mean, how do you find a line of running their stuff and run my trailer as well? I don't know. That's kind of a difficult question. I mean, how do you find the line of running their stuff and run my trailer as well? I don't know. But if you have a gravy train, I'd say ride it for a minute, right? I think I would need more details before I can answer a question like that. Market data, tender rejections hit multi-year highs last week at above 13%. The last time that tender rejections were above 13% was March of 2022, the start of the Great Freight Recession. So we're back to the beginning. Werner announced that it has acquired dedicated carrier First Fleet for $245 million in cash. The deal adds over $615 million in annual revenue and more than 2,400 tractors to Werner's existing dedicated fleet, making Werner the fifth largest dedicated provider in the U.S. A bill recently introduced by Arizona lawmaker would require police to seize a driver's semi-truck as a forfeiture if it is determined that the driver is not lawfully present in the U.S. and possess a falsified commercial driver's license. Wow. Arizona ain't playing. Meanwhile, Amazon reduced its workforce by 16,000 corporate jobs in a second round of mass layoffs. The tech giant said it plans to use generative artificial intelligence to replace corporate workers. Well, there you go. AI is replacing. So you look at the numbers like, oh, Amazon laid off 16,000 people. The economy sucks. No, they figured out a cheaper, easier way to do it by using computers. That's what that is. Gatik has become the first company in North America to deploy fully driverless trucks in commercial operations at scale by completing daily deliveries for Fortune 50 retailers across Texas, Arkansas, and Arizona. The company's 26 and 30-foot trucks run nearly 24 hours a day, moving ambient, refrigerated, and frozen goods between distribution centers and stores. How are they fueling those trucks, I wonder? How are they doing? See, here's the thing. When it comes to automated trucks, here you are, you're 10 hours into an 11-hour driving shift. You get pulled into the weigh station, and the guy's got an attitude, and he writes you up for too much grease on your fifth wheel and lectures you about how you didn't do your pre-trip. Who's doing pre-trips for these automated trucks? One time I was going through Wichita, and I was coming off a ramp, and I heard a clang. That's a weird sound. When I got to the gate of the receiver, my truck was leaning like this. I had blown a steer. I didn't blow it. It just went flat pretty quickly. You can develop a nail in a tire going down the road and not know it until your trailer tire is on fire in the back there. How does an automated truck determine that? Now, that's a whole different story for a whole different day, for a whole different channel, probably. But it's interesting how they will bend the rules to make it their advantage, not yours. And so it's up to you as the driver to become so valuable that you cannot be replaced by a computer or a driverless truck. That's your new strategy. Because when CDM was talking about how all these carriers are struggling to find new drivers, well, guess what? Some carriers are like, We don't even want to deal with people. We don't want to deal with drivers that don't listen. So we're going to program the computer to drive our trucks for us. Is there some risk? Yeah, but there's risk of putting a brand new CDL student, making them drive 600 miles in his first week too, right? They do not care about you. So you have to care about you. You have to take control. You have to be the master of your domain. Since June 2025, 13,257 ELP out of service violations have been issued, spanning a 31-week enforcement window, and nearly 60% of all ELP violations tracing back to carriers domiciled in just 5 states: Texas, Florida, Illinois, California, and Ohio. Interesting, right? American Eagle and Office Depot have begun to shut down their logistics businesses geared to serving outside customers. Florida is moving all driver's license testing to English only. The Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles said that beginning February 6, 2026. U.S. trailer orders in December showed a 5% rise, going back to what I said in the beginning of this live feed. As demand and capacity tightens, your equipment prices are going to go up. So if you're thinking about buying something, buy it now before, because in 6 months it's going to be a lot higher. Going to have to bring back full service to fuel pumps, yeah. And the truck stops will fill that need. They'll be like, yeah, we're going to hire somebody to just fuel trucks. No one is, though. I bet the company says someone is. Snorelord, go visit your local CDL school and watch the modern pre-trip. The difference is crazy between what we had to do. That won't surprise me. A lot of our local CDL schools have gone out of business. The one that I went to went out. And I was at a good one. It was a community college, and it doesn't offer it anymore. The college is still there, but they don't offer the CDL anymore. And because they couldn't afford the insurance, they couldn't afford the truck maintenance. And there's one out in Bolivar. I think they're under, or they've switched hands a few times. There's another one here in town that I think there's only one, like C1 in Springfield, in Stratford. There is the only one that's left, I think, around here. Others pop up and then they're gone in 6 months. But I imagine this enforcement has probably decreased a lot of their business as well. So, anyways, let's look at some hot market maps. This is the 1, 2, 3 low board. This is the van hot market. Green is good, red is bad on this particular map. On DAT, I think it's opposite. Oh, they don't have green. It's blue or red. Blue is bad, red is good. This is opposite. So you've got quite a bit of good volumes here. Let's look at Ohio. 812 outbound. Sort this by the highest rate. This is for van. 4750 go to Washington. 240 a mile. 46. 4,000. This is what I'm talking about right here. Euclid, Ohio to Jacksonville, Florida. $3,900. Oh, it's hazmat. So there's that. I've been seeing a lot more hazmat loads posted, which is kind of interesting. 340 mile to go to West Palm Beach from Lancaster, Ohio. There we go. 3,300 to go from Groveport, Ohio to Fort Pierce, Florida. 21,000 pounds. Delivers at 8:30. Toilet preparations or personal care products. So it's picks up at Groveport today and delivers Fort Pierce at 8:30 tomorrow evening. That's a hard run, depending on what time it delivers. But so I would ask for more. You know, the weather's not bad anymore, so you can get aggressive going into Florida again. $2.90 a mile to go from Huron, Ohio to Fort Worth, Texas. Look at this. Let's see if this is hazmat or drop trailer. Does pick it up at 8 p.m. Delivers at 4 p.m. 2 days later. 3,300 cans. That's it. So you take a load like this, and you have a driver like, well, I don't run nights. I don't do that. For 3,300, I would run this load, even though it would suck as far as, you know, time and all that. And I would look at the positive. Okay, well, 8 p.m., so showing up in Fort Worth at 4 p.m., well, that's before rush hour really starts, so that's cool. I can show up at 2, be good to go, and then, you know, find a place to park, and then pick up something in the morning. Now, what I will show, this is the 123 low board. This is 48065 if you want to try it out for free for 30 days. Don't take my word for it. My favorite tool is the market rate tool, and it will also give me, like, here's Carlsbad, New Mexico to Queens, New York. I was looking that up for a driver. And gives your toll cost, $204. Usually it's pretty accurate that I found. I've compared it to real-time numbers. Gives you your estimated profit, fuel mileage at 7 miles per gallon at $3.41 a gallon. You're looking at $1,000 worth of fuel on a run that pays anywhere from $4,200 to $4,500. You can see the lane history and if it's volatile or not. But it's going into Queens, so you can be aggressive with the pricing. So I use this tool all the time. But I'm going to show you something on DAT here. Let's refresh this. The inbound, outbound of California. This is something you got to take notice. 3,583 loads going into California and only 1,753 coming out. So my guess is a lot of their stuff's going on rail. But if you go into California, you're going into a dead zone in van. Now, let's put reefer on this. Take out van. What does that look like? Same thing. More in than out. 2461 going in and 1250 coming out. Now let's do flatbed. Take out reefer. Same, even worse. So regardless of your platform, California is just not a great place to land if you want a good outbound rate. Your best outbound states are, let's see. Look at Florida, 4295 going in, 1778 coming out. Georgia's got 4500 coming out. Iowa's got 1700 coming out. Illinois has got 5600 loads coming out. Indiana 4198. Kansas 1258. Kentucky 2179. Louisiana 1179 coming out. Michigan 2750 coming out. Minnesota's got more out, 1495. Missouri 2609. Mississippi, no. North Carolina, no. Jersey's got 2600 coming out. New York's got 25. Ohio's got 5,300 loads coming out in van. PA's got 4,400, 43 going in, so they're about even. South Carolina's got more out than in, 1940. Tennessee is upside down. Texas has got 8,200 coming out, but 9,600 going in. Wisconsin's got 2,600 coming out. Now these are just to the DAT, and then 1, 2, 3. These are, this load availability is just for a 1, 2, 3 load board. This isn't like sonar that tells you everything. But I will say this: have multiple load boards at your disposal. I use a combination of DAT, 1, 2, 3, highway, and then the broker load boards. So, anyways, I'm going to get off here because work is calling. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with me. If you want to try out the 1, 2, 3 low board, 48065 is your code to try it for 30 days for free. Don't take my word for it. If you're curious about the spot market, it's a great low board. You don't need an MC number to be able to look at loads. Also, if you want to support the channel, we're going to be at Matt's. All the information's down there. I don't have the booth number on me right off the bat. I've got it written down somewhere, but not in front of me. But Like Trucking is going to be at Matt's. And with that being said, strength for today, over tomorrow. And we'll see you hopefully Friday if things don't get crazy. Peace.